In this lecture, we're going to look at an alternative to arguments, which are modifiers. You're already familiar with modifiers. The v-on directive has modifiers for preventing the default behavior or stopping the propagation of an event. Unlike arguments, you can apply multiple modifiers to a single directive at the same time. Adding a modifier to your directive is similar to adding an argument. For this lecture, we're going to create two modifiers. One modifier will move the icon to the right side of an element. By default, that's already happening, but that shouldn't be the norm. We want the icon to hold a normal position unless a modifier is added. The second modifier will change the color of the icon to yellow. We'll apply both modifiers to showcase that you can have multiple modifiers added to a directive. Open the Home component in your editor. Search for the v-icon directive we added to this component. We're going to add two modifiers to the icon directive. We're going to call them right and yellow. Next, let's update the directive to support both modifiers. Open the icon file in your editor. We'll start with the right modifier. After the first conditional statement, we're going to create another one that checks if the binding.modifiers.right property is defined. Modifiers are stored in the binding object under a property called modifiers. If a modifier exists on a directive, it'll be added to the modifiers object. Its value will be the Boolean value true. We're not able to assign values to modifiers. They're either true or false. We can check the availability of a modifier by checking if it's true. View will automatically set the Boolean value for you. If it is, we'll modify the value of the icon class variable by adding the class that moves it to the right. In the string above, there's a class we're adding called floatRight. This class is a Tailwind utility class that will move the element to the right. Instead of adding it as a default class, we're going to cut this out. We'll append it to the icon class variable in the conditional statement. Be sure that you're adding a space before the class name. Otherwise, this will not work. We can begin working on the next modifier, which will change the color of the icon to yellow. Why don't you try creating this as an exercise? There's a class in Tailwind for changing the color of the text to yellow. Pick whichever color you like. The process is exactly the same, but with a different class name. Inside the function, check if the modifier is defined. If it is, append the class to the icon class variable. Pause the video. Good luck! Welcome back. If you are able to do this, then that's great. If not, that's fine as well. Let's walk through it together. Under the second conditional statement, create another one that checks if the binding.modifiers.yellow property is true. If it is, append the textYellow400 class to the icon class variable. Just in case, we'll add an else block for changing the color to textGreen400. In the static list of classes, we can safely remove any text color classes from the element. That's it. We've successfully added both modifiers. Switch back to the browser to view the final result. The icon will continue to appear on the right because we have the right modifier added to the directive. The color of the icon has changed to yellow. I want to test if the directive will still work if one of the modifiers is missing. Back in the component file, I'm going to remove the right modifier. Lastly, I'll refresh the page. The icon will not move to the right of its parent element. Let's check the console for errors. After confirming there are no errors, we can consider the directive complete. Modifiers are the better alternative to arguments because you can define multiple at once. The one disadvantage that modifiers have is that they can't be dynamic like arguments. The arg property will always be defined in the binding object, whereas modifiers will return undefined if they aren't available. Both can be useful depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Before I end this lecture, I'm going to add the right modifier back to the directive. I think the icon floating on the right looks more appealing this way.